Morning from Pattaya, and I've got to be honest, this video, well, not the video, but the title of the video, it's a little bit clickbaity, right? Because you might be clicking on this video thinking, that's it, Egg's giving up, he's going back to England, he's failed yet again, his business has gone bust. No, not true. If you've tuned in for that, you're going to be disappointed. This video is called Back to England, and it's not about me going back to England now, but it's about a time when I had lived here in Pattaya first, and it was 2005, and I went home at the end of 2006, so it was about 2 years. And during that time here in Pattaya, by the way, just a quick one, right? Can we have a talk about the way that I say the word Pattaya? Because it gets a lot of comments. My Thai language, my command of the Thai language is not brilliant, but it's okay. I can read and write Thai. And the way that the Thais say the word and the way that the Thais write the word is Pattaya. So I say Pattaya, right? If that pisses you off, I'm really sorry, right? But I've been here here in Pattaya for 2 years and completely failed. And I decided that I was going to go back home. In fact, I had to go back home. And this area that I'm walking around here, I don't even know what it's called. But this was where I lived. And in fact, I lived, and now you're going to get the sun, which is just rising behind me. I lived in this little block of what we call flats in the UK, right here. And I'll show you them. Here. And I lived on the 4th floor, right at the end. I think it was 409, right? And I was sitting in that block of, in that condo, and I got a phone call. This was back in 2006, and it was from my mum, and my mum was telling me that she'd gone to the doctors. She'd previously fallen down when she was walking her dog, and she was out of breath and she didn't understand, and basically the doctor had done some tests on her, and the doctor confirmed that she had an illness, and it wasn't good news. The illness that she got, I researched on the very early internet and found out that it was terminal. I wasn't having a good time here in Pattaya, so I decided that the best thing to do was to pack my bags and go home. I'd lived in this building here for almost all of the 2 years previously when I first came to Pattaya. And the first actual room that I lived in was one that was given to me for free by the guy that I worked for. And I can't remember where it was. I think it was either that room there, which has now got a washing machine outside and the taxi service sign, or I don't remember this bit at the end, but I think it could have been that room there. The one that says Hong Wang Hai Tao, it means there's a room free for rent. Where all that rubbish is there, I don't want to sort of be a bad person and show the private residence, but there, I think that was the first place that I lived. Lived there for 2 years. But coming back to it, I decided to move into that room there, just up the road. And I was with a girl. I've been with a girl for the whole of the 2 years that I'd lived here. Virtually, I've been with a lady, living with a lady called Ning. I'm still in touch with Ning nearly 20 years later, and you know what? We're good friends, and she's always been lovely to me, and she's had her ups and downs in relationships, and so have I. But and I think Ning watches my channel as well, so if you do, happy memories here in this place. But I got that call and I decided that it was time to go back to England. So it's at this point that really I should transport, if I had a big budget, right, I should transport myself back to the UK and I should show you where I lived and what happened to me. Basically, I knew that I'm going to be having to spend some time looking after my mum, who had been diagnosed with this terminal illness. I hadn't got any money, really, to be able to get my own place. I'd lost a lot of money in Pattaya. I'd come here with high hopes 2 years earlier. I'd been a manager. I'd moved around from one bar to another, trying to find a job that worked for me, trying to find a boss that I could work with, and it hadn't worked out. I'd bought a share in a bar, a minority share. I hadn't really got a lot of paperwork for that share. I'd moved in as a manager to work in that bar, and it hadn't worked out. And not many people know this, but I lost a hell of a lot of money that first time I was here. And if there's anybody out there that is in a similar situation, that has come over to Pattaya, had dreams to live here for the rest of their life, and it's gone wrong, this is me telling you, it can go right. People know me as this kind of guy who's got his own bar, that's been a kind of a success here, but he never was like that the first time I was here. I went back home, think about it, getting on that flight, knowing that I was going back home to take care of my mum, who was very, very ill, and I basically failed here in Pattaya. But I went back, and if there's one thing that you can always rely on, it's your mother's love. And Mum gave me a room to live in that house, in the house where she lived. And I'll show you what it looks like on Google Earth or Google Maps or whatever. It's just a little house in West Bromwich. And here's an interesting one. When I was here, I knew a guy called Ken. And Ken was the owner of Living Doll Showcase. Many of you might know him. It was a very famous go-go bar on Walking Street. It's now a Russian bar. But at the time, it was a very, very busy bar. I lost touch with Ken for a few years when I went back to the UK. And when I came back here again in 2010 to live here after my mum died, he wasn't here. He was back in the UK. I ran back in touch with him. I saw him a few years later. I said, "Oh, hi, Ken, how are you?" And one thing you don't know about Ken, or maybe you do, is that he supports my football team, West Bromwich Albion. And he says, yeah, he'd taken his son from Thailand and his wife, and he'd gone to live back in the UK. And do you know, he lived in exactly the same road, 3 or 4 doors down from the road that I went to live with my mum. I was really lucky. I've always said that I've worked every day since I was 13. I had a paper round, and ever since then I had another little job. Then I left school and got a job, and at times I've done 2 jobs. And I always said I've never been unemployed, but that's a lie. The day I flew back to the UK, I went back to England to care for Mum. I hadn't got a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. As far as I knew, I was going to be looking after my mum. The very next day, and I can't remember the details of this, about how this person got my phone number, whether I'd got an old number in the UK or whatever. But I remember I'd been bitten by a dog. Hey, there's something that has happened to me recently. I was always getting bitten by dogs here in Thailand. I'd been bitten by a dog, and I had to get a rabies injection, and it was a rabies inoculation injection, I should say. And it was the last of the course, and I'd got all my paperwork from the UK. And here's a funny story. Go to a doctor's surgery in the UK. I don't know if you can do this anymore, by the way. Go to a doctor's surgery in the UK and say, oh, hello, I've just come from a tropical country and I've come here for a rabies shot. Well, for some reason, the waiting room at the doctor's surgery seemed to sort of empty out really, really quickly. But I was sitting there waiting to get this jab, my final jab for to take care of the dog fight I'd had in Thailand. And I got a phone call, and it was from my own boss, my old boss. And she was saying, look, you know, I know you're in Thailand at the moment, but we really, really need you back here. Is there any chance you'd ever consider coming back home and working again? And I said, you know what? I'm actually sitting in a doctor's surgery in West Bromwich, and I got offered my job. The job that I'd left 2 years earlier, I got back. And she goes, yeah, you start the weekend. I've been unemployed for a whole day, and I just got lucky, and I was able to work again. Oh, I'll tell you, the job that I got was I was working in gentlemen's clubs, real gentlemen's clubs, strip clubs, if you like, in the UK. I was working as a DJ there. And one thing I noticed about all the Thai workers we had a a lot of young female Thais, some not so young actually, but looked very, very young, that were working in those clubs. One thing I noticed about them, they made a lot of money, right? Because they were kind of everything that the Western women weren't. And they were the thing that kind of attracts us to Asian women. So they were quite small, petite, even though they were, some of them in their 30s and even in their 40s, they looked great. You know, they looked after themselves. They didn't have stretch marks as much as Western women. I'm not having a go at Western women, by the way, if you're watching. It's just a comparison, okay? And they tended not to be such bad drinkers, or if they were bad drinkers, they didn't tend to show it. They certainly didn't tend to do as many drugs as the English girls did. And by the end of the night, they'd made a lot of money. But there was one thing that bonded every single one of the Thai girls that I was working with there. And that was, at the end of the night, they all used to go, take their money that they'd earned and go to the casinos in Birmingham. If you know Birmingham, there was a lot of casinos there. There probably still is, I don't know. I've never really been a casino guy. And one night, one of the girls, her name was, Goi, that was it, Goi. Goi actually means little finger in Thai. Goi said to me, would you be interested in coming along to the casino with me? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, is this... Because we could speak Thai, and we used to sit in the changing room and speak Thai to each other, with each other, and all the English staff used to be, Phil, will you stop speaking Chinese and all that? You know, they had no idea what language we were speaking. But it was fun, and we had time together. But anyway, Goi asked me to go to the casino. So I went. I don't know why. My first and only time I'd ever been to a casino in the UK was with this Thai girl. And we went to the casino, and I had this romantic picture in my mind of what casinos were like. They were very, very opulent. They had very, very high-so people inside, dressed in tuxedos, maybe a white tuxedo, ladies in full evening gowns, and, you know, maybe smoking a cigarette or whatever. And it was all very posh, and it was all very elegant, and it was all very James Bond in my mind. Now, for all those people that have actually been to casinos, it's completely different. And bear in mind, this was my one and only trip to a casino, because I was completely amazed at what I found inside, which was basically a load of Chinese guys completely hypnotised, almost in a trance, going from roulette table to roulette table to roulette table to blackjack, to that game where the thing spins around and the ball bounces up and down. I have no idea what it's called. And they weren't, a lot of them, I was standing there and it was quite busy. One of them tripped over me as he was walking from table to table to table, because he was so concentrating on what was going on. And they're all dressed in like tracksuits and sportswear and trainers, and I was really, really disappointed. I thought this was going to be something really special, but it wasn't. But I had a good time. And it was a contrast from the times I spent during the day, which were difficult for Mum, to be honest. And I've made this message, really, I've made this video, really, to send a message to a lot of my followers and a lot of people that now come into my bar. Two things. First of all, my mum died. It was a difficult time at the time. I thought that the world would never get better. I was just, it was a never-ending tunnel of doom. There are a lot of my friends who I meet in the bar that are in the same situation that I was. They were looking after their elderly relative, or they are looking after their elderly relative, and it just seems to go on and on and on, and they don't know when it's going to end. And my message to you would be, it really does get better. There will be a time, and I don't know when that's going to be, and it might be in 3 months' time, it could be in 3 years' time, when that relative of yours that you're looking after dies, and you know that's going to happen. And when it does, you will be able, at some point in your life, to put all of that time in your life into some kind of perspective. And to say, you know what, at the time it was a horrible, horrible time. I didn't have any free time. I felt my life was just draining away from me. All I wanted to do was to be back in Thailand. But you know what? It was a good time. And look, the time that I'd spent looking after my mum, I really, really look back on now and say, do you know what? I did the right thing at the right time. Nobody can take that away from me, what I did. It was horrendous at times, looking after an elderly relative, somebody you love, somebody you've seen deteriorate over the years. But it was worth it in the end. And the second thing I want to say to people is, I came back. I wasn't looking to come back, but in 2010, I got offered a job here in Pattaya, and I took it, and I came back. And although that job didn't work out, and the next job didn't work out, but eventually, through hard work, talking to people, I made friends over here, decided at one point that I was going to make my own business, and I went for it. That was 8 years ago, and I've had tremendous success. And I've not just had success financially, kind of, a little bit. I've made all that money back that I lost. But I've also had tremendous success just meeting people. The things that I've learned far more in these 8 years that I've come back to Pattaya and mixed with you people, not just online but in the bar, than I ever did when I was at school. So thank you. And the second thing is this. If there are people that have come to Pattaya with big ideas, with big dreams, like I did in 2005, I was going to be it. That was it. I remember making a big thing in my own mind about leaving my sweater, jumper, whatever, on the plane. It was something I wanted to do. It was like a statement. That's it. I've left all the cold weather and the horrible British winter and all my bad memories in the UK. I've left it deliberately on the plane, right? I failed. I lost a lot of money. It all went wrong, and I had to go back to the UK. But you know what? I went back to England. I did what I had to do, kind of got lucky, worked again, and everybody I know that goes back to the UK from Pattaya lands on their feet and does well. And you ask them how they're doing, and they don't want to go. They've been putting off going, whether it's for health reasons or financial reasons. But they go back to the UK or wherever your country is, and they do okay. They manage to swim, and they come back, and they do even better. And my message to you is this. If you are not having a particularly good time here in Thailand, just go back home. Go back home, get a job, be bored, get some money together and come back. And it might work out for you the second time. As long as you remember the mistakes that you made and take that information with you, you will succeed the second time around. So I wish you all the best.